Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another video. Today I am recording this one from a random little jetty here in the heart of the Gold Coast. You know, there's surfers paradise over there, beautiful sunrise over there. I understand that the lighting isn't going to be great for this video, but hopefully it's going to pick up a pretty nice sunrise for you, and you can see the beautiful picturesque waters of the Gold Coast. So thank you for tuning in. In today's episode, or in actual fact but actually because we are all one and the same, it is actually we, because you are creating this reality. Anyway, I digress. Today I'm going to be talking about consciousness. I've spoken about this subject before, but it is such a difficult subject to explain or even question. I mean, what even is consciousness? Science has no clue. Science doesn't even know how it is generated. Sure, it knows that it is generated in the brain because they've seen through various experiments that if certain parts of the brain are removed or stimulated, then the participant's conscious awareness is altered. We also know that if our brain is removed, we lose our consciousness altogether. Or do we? That question that then takes us to a question that is as old as time itself. Is our consciousness created from our brain, like power from a generator, or does our brain simply act like some form of receiver, like your television? Just because your TV might break doesn't mean that the signal has stopped being sent. TV stations are still being broadcast, you have just lost the ability to receive them. Is your consciousness even real? The mathematical statistics state that we are more likely living in a simulation rather than base reality. I mean, if we go back a few episodes on my channel to the one about technology and extrapolate that data out, it's not hard to perceive a future where we are living in a simulated reality. First, we started painting pictures of one another, but because this wasn't real enough, we invented photography. This was in 1826. We then thought this still wasn't real enough, so we invented color photography. Then from there we decided that we needed our homies in the pictures to be moving. In 1918 we invented videography. Fast forward to today, we have virtual reality and augmented reality, which are creating photorealistic worlds around us, enabling us to travel the world from the comfort of our own homes. Fast forward another 30 years and children being born will likely be spending the majority of their life in a virtual world. So, who is to say that in another 100 or 200 years we don't develop the technology to completely fabricate a base reality and play God, play Sims, but in real life? So, do you think this reality is real? Who is to say that you didn't wake up one time, that you went to sleep and this is all merely a dream, where you think you are consciously aware? How do you truly know that you are real? How do you know that I am real? Or that I am consciously aware and not just a bot that is filling a role in this fabricated reality of your dream world? What about your friends and family? Your pets? How are we to know that anything is real at all? But ultimately, are any of these questions even relevant? Who knows? I'm just a bloke trying to give people a mild existential crisis as I slowly descend into the black hole of my own existence. Just kidding. Those questions are quite paradoxical though, because we may never truly know the answer. I have my own thoughts on what consciousness is, and I do believe we're all consciously aware, regardless of whether we're living in a real life Sims game. Technology will be so far advanced that we'll not be able to differentiate between the real world and from the simulation. So, let's act as if this is actually real life, because for us it is. Did you know that your consciousness leaves out more data than it takes in? Our eyes, which make up the largest part of our conscious awareness, only see less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum, like a shitload less. I'm talking 0.0035% of that sucker. That is what scientists refer to as visible light. Of that 99.9965% remaining from the electromagnetic frequency are things like X-rays and ultraviolet lights. There is more, but they're the most common ones that you're likely to know. We as humans, because our eyes are lame and only see such a small percentage of light, we've invented technology to be able to see the other sections of that spectrum. Dogs can't see in colour, so they have access to even less light, and because they don't have that specific colour receptors in their eyes, they don't see rainbows. So, as lame as your eyes are, as lame as your eyes are for seeing, you are still able to see rainbows, and that's pretty bloody awesome. What's that I hear you saying? What about the sound frequency? See what I did there? Lame joke. Anyway. Lame jokes aside, our hearing is pretty terrible too, especially us males, because apparently we have this thing called selective hearing, where we can shut out all the nagging of our partners. But anyway, humans on average can hear frequencies from 20 Hz up to 20,000 Hz. I know that sounds like a lot, but the frequencies lower than 20 Hz are what we call infrasounds, and elephants and hedgehogs can hear these low sound frequencies, whereas on the opposite end of the scale, quite literally compared to humans and hedgehogs, a whale can hear up to 160,000 Hz, and some bats can even hear at 200,000 Hz, which is how they can use their echolocation. Now that we have learnt more about the animal kingdom and how lame our conscious awareness is at perception, let's get back to the point of this. What is consciousness? My thought on what it is that we are all individual forms of a universal consciousness. I believe that we're all one conscious awareness that is experiencing itself and is in the pursuit of its own growth and evolution. Let me put it this way. If you lived in a world that had no mirrors and there were no reflections from anything, basically you're a vampire in this particular fabricated reality, how would you know you had a head? How would you know what it looked like? Obviously you would see other people's heads and you could feel your own, but you would never know what it truly looked like. It's not as if you can turn your eyes around and see the back of your head. I'd certainly be curious as to what my head would look like. Instead, I live in a world where I do get to see my head, and I know that it's a fat head. Again, I digress. This universe that we live in, I believe, is an emergent form of consciousness that is constantly trying to look at the back of its own head, and through that emergence, you and everyone you know have been created. There are many forms of ancient philosophies and spiritualities that, more or less, believe the same thing. Even science is starting to believe the same concept. The unified field is a fundamental part of quantum mechanics where all time and laws of physics break down. This is where all forms of reality emerge once observed by our very own consciousness. In this unified field, all outcomes and all realities are possible. We are creating from this field every single moment. Science and spirituality are becoming unified. We have access to this unified field through meditation. Once you elevate your consciousness to become no body or no thing, or as it is referred to, move into a state of non-duality, you then move your consciousness into that unified field and move into a reality where all things are possible. This state of being is not something that can be explained. It is something that needs to be experienced. It goes beyond words, but believe me, if you get the opportunity to experience this state of being, you will never look at life the same again. This I promise you. You can't even be told the road that you need to take to experience it because it's your own personal road to discover. You can have guides, sure, but it's a state of awareness that only you can take yourself down. Psychedelics, at least so I'm told, can help lift the veil between you and the absolute reality that our everyday consciousness doesn't perceive. Moving into a world of fractals and geometric patterns that make up this base reality, seeing other dimensions into a world that is out of normal perception can be a beautiful experience, but it can also be a traumatic one. So, if you do decide to go down the path of lifting the veil to an altered state of consciousness, do so with caution. You are here to experience this life. You have been gifted a unique life so that you can experience it for the greater purpose of a higher consciousness. Some call this higher consciousess God, some simply call it the universe. Whatever you label it, that higher consciousness is within all of us as much as we are in it. You're at a stage in the evolution. You are a stage in the evolution of the universe itself. You are a stage of the evolution of humans across this globe, in this life and the next. You owe it to the higher consciousness, to your friends, family, and everyone who lives a life in this world after you leave it. But most importantly, you owe it to yourself to be the best damn version in this conscious awareness that you can be. Understand your magnificence. Recognize your beauty. Appreciate your own consciousness for what it is, because as best we understand it, this is the only version that you will ever experience. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all for now. Thank you again for listening. If you made it this far, leave a comment or slide into my DMs and tell me how magnificent your own consciousness is, because after all you have been through, it has gotten you this far. I love you all, and until next time, as always, much love and namaste.